to the Lobo Zone. I'm your host, Charlie Hume, and we are live from the Undefeated studio here in Washington, D.C. After a 2-year hiatus, it is great to be back in the den, and we owe a huge deal of gratitude to Dan LeBatard. Without his involvement and passion for the game of fantasy football, there would be no zone for the Lobos. We've got a ton of great Week 3 action to get you to, so without further ado, let's get in the zone. And we begin with a matchup of two former League of Lobos champions, Allisyn's Lobos, 104.8 points, Dan's Lobos, 54.3 points. It's a quiet week for Allisyn outside of the Pat Mahomes-Travis Kelce stack. Those two combined for 44.7 points. Dan left 62.8 points on the bench, but not all that would have translated into an impact. All 5 of Dan's bench players are wide receivers, something to look at in terms of team building in the Lobo headquarters this week. Allisyn improves to 2-1, that'll get her to 4th in the Remus division, and Dan falls to 1-2, 6th in the Romulus division. Next up, the Fitzmagic ran out for the Zobos this week as they ran into a buzzsaw. Mina's Lobos, 153.2 points, Lorenzo's Lobos, 128.8. Mina got a combined 63.4 points from the Drew Brees Michael Thomas stack and another 20.4 from her beloved Seahawk, Chris Carson. Lorenzo had to feel let down by the Vikings defense heading into what looked like a great matchup with the Bills. Mina moves to 2nd place in the Remus division with a record of 2-1. Lorenzo falls to 6th in the same division and remains winless on the season. And on to a tough day for Chris as he loses both the game and his starting quarterback, Jimmy Garoppolo. Roy's Lobos, 127.1 points. Chris's Lobos, 122.9. Saquon Barkley and Tyler Boyd led the charge for Roy. They combined for 48.4 points. There will be some serious questions about Chris's personnel decisions at Lobo headquarters this week after he left Calvin Ridley's 40.5 points on the bench in favor of Josh Gordon, who did not play. Roy joins 4 2-1 teams at the top of the Romulus division. Chris suffers his first loss but remains 2nd in the Romulus division on points scored. We move next to a low-scoring affair between two teams who began the week at 1-1. Kamish's Lobos, 95.5 points. Stugatz's Lobos, 89.7. Sarah will be happy to see her Chicago Bear Jordan Howard go for 16.1 points, and she got another 17 from Antonio Brown. While Stugatz has to be bitterly disappointed with the 3 wide receivers he started, all of whom failed to tally 10 points, while Marvin Jones Jr.'s 16.9 points were left on the bench. Sarah brings up the rear in a pack of 2-1 teams in the middle of the Remus division. Stugatz falls to 1-2, 5th place in the Romulus division. Moving next to a tight contest between 2 of the shipping container's finest. Guillermo's Lobos, 98.8 points, Mike's Lobos, 94.3. A surprisingly productive week for 5 of Billy's running backs who combined for 90.6 points, but he narrowly avoids disaster. He left 2 of the most productive backs, Carlos Hyde and Buck Allen, on the bench. Rams Chargers was a double whammy for Mike. He left Jared Goff and his 25.6 points on the bench in favor of Carson Wentz's 11.2 points, and he also got -4 points from the Chargers defense. Billy jumps to 2-1 and 4th place in the Romulus division. Mike remains winless at the bottom of the same division. Next up, one of the undefeated zone takes on a man who was defeated by the very first obstacle on American Ninja Warrior. Amin's Lobos, 152 points, Fox's Lobos, 136.6. Alvin Kamara and Robert Woods were a 2-headed monster for Amin this week, racking up a combined 67.7 points. Dominique got 40.2 points from Matt Ryan and had a shot heading into the Monday night game, but was let down by his tandem of running backs, Peyton Barber and James Conner, who combined for just 17.8 points. Amin is 3rd in the Remus division with a 2-1 record. Dominique remains in the Remus basement, winless on the season. It is time now for the LOL Game of the Week. Randy Scott's Lobos, 129.4 points. Greg's Lobos, 112. Greg got a great performance from the bottom half of his roster with the Rams defense and Matt Prater combining for 27 points, but his receivers really let him down. Tyreek Hill, Pierre Garçon, and Deshaun Jackson combined for just 16.4 points. Mike Evans led the way for Randy with 25.7 points, who also got quite a bit of help from his Bears defense to the tune of 15 points against the Cardinals. Randy Scott emerges from Week 3 as the only undefeated team in the League of Lobos, 3-0 atop the Remus division. Greg also remains in 1st place in the Romulus division, but falls to 2-1 and has to be starting to feel the heat of 2nd overall pick Le'Veon Bell sitting on the bench for a 3rd straight week while his contract situation with the Steelers remains unresolved. For more from Greg, let's head inside the den.
Hello everyone, Greg Cote, Executive Director of Pro Football Operations for Greg's Lobos. In lieu of this week's press conference, we're just going to make a quick statement. Unfortunately, the Lobos fell from the ranks of the unbeatens over the weekend, losing to Randy Scott's team in the LeBatard Show League of Lobos 129-112. The Lobos remained tied for second in the league and leading the division with a 2-1 record. We squandered 49 combined points from Deshaun Jackson and Adrian Money Peterson when on Monday night, Ryan Fitzpatrick's flowing beard evidently prevented him from seeing a wide open Deshaun Jackson, who needed only a decent game to carry us to yet another victory. But we remain stalwart, we remain determined, and this week we look forward to meeting and beating Amin Allisyn. Lobos don't quit. When the work gets hard, we work harder. And that's why God invented the 3 words, we are the Lobos. See you next week.
Thanks to Greg, as always, for his valuable insight. That's all for this week's edition of Lobo Zone. In the words of Mr. Lobo himself, Gregory P. Cote, put a Lobo mint under your pillow and dream big.